It's a must-win situation for Iowa basketball tonight. I'll tell you why they'll get it done against the Wildcats and what it does for their Big Ten prospects today. Locked on Hawkeye.
You are Locked on Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked on Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked on Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube. Hit subscribe while you're watching. Helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. If you are listening on the audio side, 5-star reviews, greatly appreciate that to each and every one of you. We got basketball on the horizon today. A lot of hoops talk as we make our way through the end of the regular season. Coming up a little bit later on, we will talk about the women's basketball team, their matchup this weekend against Wisconsin. It is senior day, and not just the seniors. Lucy Olsen coming in with her final year of eligibility, and some of the other names, including Sydney Affolter, but a possibility. Kylie Fearbach coming back for another season. We will get into that a little bit later on when we talk some Iowa women's hoops. Plus, Tom Kakert is going to stop in from HawkeyeReport.com, part of On3 Media. Always going to get the great perspective of Tom Kakert, who will be joining us here in just a little bit. But we start with tonight's matchup for Iowa against Northwestern. Northwestern comes in winners of 2 in a row. And when you're talking about the bottom of the Big Ten, that's not too shabby. So Iowa fighting for their NCAA tournament. No. For their Big Ten tournament lives. The loss to Illinois was expected. The losses that have come against Maryland and Wisconsin and Purdue. There's been so many times where at this point in the season, with Owen Freeman being out, Cooper Koch being lost for the year, you're seeing a team incredibly banged up with Josh Dix and Peyton Sanford. They just don't have the horses. And honestly, it's difficult for me to come in here and freak out, get belligerent, lose my mind, get overly upset when you're just outmanned. It's not to give an excuse to the team or to give an excuse to Fran McCaffrey for being in the spot that they are. It's just reality. And the reality is that this team doesn't have enough to compete. That's not the case, though, tonight. Because this Northwestern team that they face off, Iowa over at FanDuel, currently a 4.5-point underdog. Iowa faces a team that has some of their own issues. Brooks Barnheiser, really skilled guy, can beat you from the outside, can knock down a three, can beat you inside, good off the bounce. He's hurt. Jalen Leach, another one of their big contributors. He's hurt. After Nick Martinelli, who's outstanding, by the way. Martinelli has really, really improved his game from what we saw in the early portions of his career. And this is a guy that has morphed into one of the better players in the Big Ten. He's gotten much bigger, and he is scoring at a high level because he has to. You look through what he has done recently, he's been putting up some big point totals because of those other injuries. Then Ty Berry. That feels like he might have played with Evan Eschmeyer. Youngsters, look it up. He's been around for a little, I know it's his 5th year, but man, feels like Ty Berry's been around. But after that, this team is depleted immensely. Nicholson's a big body inside. He is what he is, right? Big body. Give him space. He gets an angle inside. He can make some plays, but this is not a very good team. Yeah, they beat Ohio State and Minnesota. This is, of the remaining 3 games, probably the most winnable. And as we've talked about, in order for Iowa to qualify for the Big Ten tournament, they have to win at least one. They have to get one more victory in order for that to happen. That's what needs to be done for it to go. You have to be able to find a victory. Not a big ask, but one. And I played around with the projection site, Drink. You've heard it again. Yes, bball.notnothing.net. And what I've gone through. First, when you calculate the seeds, and everybody that's a favorite wins, I was on the outside looking in. They finish in a tie for 15th place, but it's against Minnesota, and the Gophers had the tiebreaker. You give them a win here and even move around a bunch of other things. I was in because they'll have 2 victories against Northwestern. With all those tiebreakers, having those 2 victories against Northwestern, even in a multi-team tie, That's going to be incredibly big for Iowa. So I just played that. And the way it sets Iowa's in the Big Ten tournament with a win tonight, they'd be taking on Indiana in the opening round. With a win, they get UCLA. Look, Iowa's not going to go on a deep run. It's not going to matter, but you want to be there. You want to at least, at minimum, be there. Now, this leads to a conversation that Fran McCaffrey had after Mike Rhodes was freaking out. And it's qualifying for the Big Ten tournament, where only 15 of the 18 teams get in. Personally, I am not a fan of this. And it's not because Iowa, well, maybe it's a little bit, because I was down here struggling to get into the Big Ten tournament. One thing, though, that I love about college basketball, one of the things that is my favorite part is when we get to this point. We got our first bracket, by the way. 31 brackets will be coming for conference tournament week. Our first one is set in the Atlantic Sun. And I'll probably be betting on the A Sun. But I love the ability. You could have a crappy year, but you still have that final shot. You still have a way to play your way in to the big dance. We've seen teams with losing records. We've seen teams come out of nowhere. You go back to just a year ago, what NC State was on their way to. They win 5 games in 5 days in the ACC tournament and they get in. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen from time to time. And I still enjoy that part of college basketball. That outside of the Ivy League, everybody had a shot to play your way in. And so many teams saw their season come to a close, and you know, but at least you had that shot. And with the structure, we might say, well, man, with 18 teams, there's got to be a stopping point. This is as simple as it is. And in fact, I like the structure of this a whole lot more than the current structure. Because when you go this direction, it makes a ton of sense. So the Wednesday of the opener of the Big Ten tournament, you have 3 games. The 10 versus the 15, the 11 versus the 14, and the 12 against the 13. That's what you have. In order to make this work, you're just adding 2 more games. So the top 8 seeds, the top half of your league, gets buys. And you're left with these 5 games. The 9 seed gets the 18, the 10 against the 17, the 11 against the 16, 12 against the 15, the 13 against the 14. 2 extra games, sell it off to Peacock or Big BTN or whatever. It's still going to get a number. People are still going to watch. Still, people are going to bet on it. Why those 3 teams don't even get the opportunity, I don't get it. Look, if you can't finish in the top half of the league, you don't get a bye. It's fair. You're the 9 seed, you get the 18. Pass along. It can happen. It's happened before. I like this structure a whole lot more. Hopefully, this is something that will be coming to the Big Ten, the ACC along with it, as they've, of course, expanded out to 18 teams with the addition of Stanford. Weird. And Cal, SMU joined it in there. So things also looking a little bit different. That's what I would do. But in order for Iowa to get it done, has to win. Now, of the 3 games, because Northwestern's had more struggles this year, this might be the more likely one. All 3 of these games, though, are basically in the same boat. And it doesn't matter which of the 3 they win. I think this one goes a little bit further, but you have to get a win. Maybe it's Thursday on senior night against Michigan State. Maybe they surprise us all, lose these next 2, and then finally right the ship with a win against Northwestern. You have to get a win, though. It's as simple as that, and it starts tonight against Northwestern. Back on the other side, we talk Hawkeye hoops with Tom Kakert from HawkeyeReport.com, plus Kylie Feuerbach. Should she come back to Iowa for her 6th year, and how does she fit into the future plans of the Hawkeyes? Plus, a parent getting a little chirpy in the women's basketball team. We'll do that as we continue Locked On Hawkeyes. Life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You can be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. As a parent, I want to make sure my family is financially protected no matter what happens. Fabric gives me that peace of mind. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com Facebook.com/LockedOnCollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions.
Let's get to Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com. He's already in Evanston, Northwestern, Iowa. The rematch tonight, way back December the 3rd. Crazy that's when that game was played, right?
It was a different world.
It was entirely. In a 1 point.
Who hit the shot at the end?
Dix
Hit the big one at the end to propel them over the top. Hello, Tom Kakert. Boy, oh boy, you were all over TV the other night. By the way, I'm sure many people have pointed that out to you. But when you're in Champaign, those media seats, you're going to get your mug on TV. I know that's not why you're there, but that was certainly part of it.
Yeah, I was told I was on. I knew I was going to be on a lot, but that just means you got something to get the mice out of the house now, right?
There you go. And I love the fact that you were actually writing down on a pad with a pen. You weren't typing. You're doing the old school pen. But Bowen Camp would be proud of you.
Yes, that's what I do. John and I are ancient people, and we just write notes all game about what's going on the floor, and it helps you remember what's going on. I keep all that stuff at home and put it in a file. It's just I'm weird that way.
No, it's good stuff. Well, here we go tonight. I think it's a big spot. Trent thinks they got to get one of the next three, right? And he's right. Yep. I think this is the more likely of the other two. Michigan State coming and on the road at Nebraska, because Nebraska will have a ton to play for, perhaps as well. When you watch this Northwestern team, what do you see? Obviously, Nick Martinelli stands up, but what else?
They have gotten better after losing two starters. They've kind of figured things out go on the road and win at Ohio State, and then go up, and Minnesota's playing better, and they went up there and just handled their business. And that impresses me when a team, they lose Leach, they lose Barnhizer, and lose both those guys, and they've kind of, Chris Collins is such a good coach. Mm-hmm. And by the way, if something happens, I'd float his name out there a little bit, maybe.
Okay.
Okay.
Interesting.
Put that one in the back pocket.
Name.
Yes.
Yeah, just that'd be a name I'd call. But, not saying anything's happening. I don't know what's going to happen. But I thought it was interesting, by the way, guys, that Beth Getz was on the trip to Champaign. So just thought that was interesting that she was made that trip, because that's not like one of those where, like, here in Evanston, where you're going to, you maybe have some donors and stuff like that.
Go to the Big Ten offices, shake a couple hands there. That would make sense. Champaign, not a whole lot going on there outside of farms.
No, that's South Farms, and if the wind's blowing the wrong direction, you're for a long day.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, God. So what do you expect tonight, Tom? What kind of effort? We've seen the effort. Obviously, we said this during the week. Trent said it. For I would have a chance, essentially Dix and Peyton Sanford both have to have 25 or right around there.
Yep.
Yeah, not one of them, both of them. And they both really struggled last time out. What do you expect tonight?
And both those guys are pretty beat up. I think Peyton's going to have a bounce back game. He tends to bounce back pretty well. And you guys remember last year, Josh Dix had at that point his best game of his career at Northwestern, and really kind of carried him down the stretch to a win. So your odds are that both those guys are going to play pretty well tonight, but is that going to be enough? Northwestern, just what's impressed me about Northwestern since they've lost the two starters is they held Ohio State to 49 points. I mean, that's an Ohio State team that, correct me if I'm wrong, went out to SC and won this week. Mm-hmm. It's just they are playing really good defense right now and holding teams under 70 points. And Iowa's margin for error is just so razor thin. And the thing that I've noticed with this Iowa team in this stretch is they may hang with teams in the first half. They've got the Maryland game where they were up 51-47 at halftime. And then the bottom just falls out in the second half. And that happened again at Illinois, where the bottom just kind of falls out. And, if folks might be interested in dabbling a bit in some things. Maybe that's something you look at halftime.
Yeah. It's cousin Sal does that in football all the time. From Jimmy Kimmel Live, he's got a gambling show now. You bet one team in the first half, then come back money line on the other team. Does that a lot in the NFL. Maybe that's something here for Iowa Northwestern tonight. Iowa in the first half, Northwestern overall, and usually get 7-8 to 1 when you're doing things like that. Well, gambling will continue. We will have lots of bets out there, but would you bet right now that Iowa does make the Big Ten tournament?
I wouldn't. I don't think they're going to make it. I just don't think they're going to make it. I just don't. I don't. They're not going to be favored to win any games.
No.
They're not favored tonight. They're not going to be favored against Michigan State. They're not going to be favored at Pinnacle Bank Arena. They're just not. So the odds would be they're not making it. And, Fran yesterday kind of laid the groundwork for that a little bit, talking about how, because apparently Mike Rhodes, the Penn State coach, called it something bleep. Bleep. I think was the term. We can't say on
well, you say the horse part, but
yeah. We can't. Yeah. So there's some frustration from coaches. I thought it was odd that they made that decision to begin with.
Sure.
It's just, the conference makes so much money already. What's a couple more games going to hurt?
I totally agree.
Well, and it's 2 more games. That's all that it is. It's 2 more games. You have the 9 play the 18, the 10 against the 17, all down. That opening Wednesday, instead of 3 games, you have 5. It's not that big of a deal. I'm baffled now looking back. We should have made a bigger deal about it. It's 2 more games.
Yeah, it was ridiculous that they made that decision, but it's what they're going to do. So,
and Minnesota has the tiebreaker over Iowa, right? The head-to-head.
Yeah, the head-to-head.
They got the head-to-head. They're the other head-to-heads are okay, but like if they win tonight, then I think they're basically locked to be in.
You're talking Minnesota?
No, Iowa.
Okay.
Iowa wins tonight because then they'd have the 2 wins over Northwestern, so they'd have all the
yeah.
3 and a game up on the Cats. So I would think they'd be in pretty good shape.
Huge game, because Minnesota's got they're at Nebraska. They've got some tricky spots coming up. They got 2 Wisconsin. I can't remember. Oh, it's at Rutgers.
Yeah, at Rutgers. And Rutgers is on that bubble too.
And Rutgers is on that bubble too.
If you play around over at bball.nothing.net, get drink if you've heard that one a time or 2 before. If you go over there, you put Iowa in and play with a bunch of different scenarios. Iowa's still in the Big Ten tournament with the win tonight. That 2 wins against Northwestern goes a long way.
Yeah, huge. Yep. What about Drew Thelwell? What do you think? When do you see? Will we see him tonight?
Supposed to see him. That's what Fran said yesterday, that he expects him to play. Now, how effective he will be is the $64,000 question, because kid wants to play, but he re-sprained it before the last game, and so it's just, boy, you wonder if he's gonna, how much he can give him. And
that was the Wisconsin game he got hurt.
Yeah,
under the basket,
and then he came back in.
He came back in.
Came back in.
Yeah,
and then came back in and tried to play through it, but you knew he was going to pay for it.
Right.
But you knew he was going to pay for it regardless. So, so he came out there and kind of gutted it out. If they can get 15 minutes out of him, and some solid defense and maybe a couple shots, boy, that just helps them so much, because they just need another scorer, because otherwise it's Peyton, it's Price, and it's Josh Dix, and that's kind of your scoring output for the team. So you know, unless you can get 15 from Riley Mulvey.
Well, 15 minutes you're going to get. I don't know if you're going to get 15 points out of him though.
Brock Hardy came to life last time out. He had 16
on the offensive end. Other end, different stories. It usually is. Tom, does Beth Getz know? Is her decision already made? Is her decision made, and maybe a step further? If it is, do other people in the basketball offices know?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think she's made, just based on talking to people around Beth. Beth is not going to ever be a definitive answer.
I got one of those comments the other day on the podcast. Why don't you guys just ask them?
Really?
She's not going to,
Right. Yeah.
she's not going to tell you.
Right.
So, and nor should she.
No.
I don't think she's made a decision,
Okay.
but I think there might be a lean
Mm-hmm.
in the direction that most people think this is going to end up. But that's just my guess on nothing other than kind of reading the room a little bit. She made that trip. I thought that was interesting. She's been at all the home games. She sees it's a financial decision, guys. It's not.
Yes.
It's not as much about Fran and performance, because guys have bad years. You have one of those years and you can chalk it up to injuries, whatever. And you got a good recruiting class coming in, and you can sell it. You could sell going forward, but it's just butts and seats. That's lost revenue. And in this era, when you're paying $20.5 million going out the door for paying players, you're going to have to make it up somewhere, and it's butts and seats.
Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com. Tom, thank you. We appreciate it. Enjoy Evanston tonight, and we will talk with you next week. I guess that'll be in advance of maybe a do or die against Nebraska on Sunday to bring the curtain down on the regular season. Tom, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Good to talk to you, Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com. Show.
Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by Prize Picks. March basketball, it's here, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you pick more or less of at least 2-player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, easy, and keeps every game exciting. This week, I'm taking a look at Luka. How about that performance? Not so much on the point side, but it's simple as that. You want to go more rebounds. You can do that. More assists or less points. More or less, that's what you're doing. Quick and easy. I can make my picks in less than 60 seconds and stay engaged all game long, and fast payouts. When I win, my money hits my account in as little as 15 minutes. No waiting around. Download the app today for Prize Picks. Make sure you use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Back with you one final time, Locked On Hawkeyes. I'm Trent Condon. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Wrapping things up with a little women's basketball talk, and it is senior day. It is the regular season finale. It's a bad Wisconsin team coming to town. I think all those things all kind of go hand in hand together. This is a game that should be a laugher. As we've talked about at times, this has been one that overall, it's been a pretty dominating performance for Iowa. Historically, it's kind of crazy just to think back and to look at things in this women's basketball program. It hasn't been great overall at Wisconsin. Iowa's dominated the series, and this is another one that definitely should be in the win column. Pulling up the numbers currently in this, and there we go. Scrolling through, getting back to my Iowa page. There they are. 21st in the country at Bart Torvik, and the projections have Iowa favored in this one by 21 points. 79-58 the final. Should be a coast. The conversation is about, though, the seniors. Lucy Olsen going out there for her final time at Carver Hawkeye Arena. Sydney Affolter, the longtime star. As you everydayers know, I have such an affinity for her game, the way that she plays, just how excellent she has been, taking and getting the most out of that 5'11" frame and mixing it up inside and doing the dirty work and doing the little things. And it's been tremendous to watch. And by the way, going out shooting 45% now from 3 after that big performance. We'll see her out there one more time. Addison O'Grady. And though it hasn't probably been as consistent as we wanted, Addison has been a big part of this team and been a big part of their success. AJ Edinger, one that did progress like she was billed coming out of Michigan. She was a high 4-star A lot of people thought that she was going to be, somebody that's going to be a multi-year starter, and it didn't turn out that way. But her contributions to the program. And then finally we get to Kylie Fierbach and what she is going to do to wrap up her career, because she would have a 6 year of eligibility. And if she is going to exercise that, come back for another season, come back for a new go around, that's going to look a lot different. Stolke will be back. Taylor McCabe will be back. That freshman class, obviously, you anticipate they're all going to be there, though. If you listen to Aaliyah Guyton's dad, maybe not. AJ Guyton, former Indiana Hoosier, he's got a lot to say on social media. And had a tweet up there asking how you get into the portal. Quickly took that down. Weird. That aside. We'll anticipate. How about that? And also this environment for all the freshmen. We saw good things out of Ava Hayden. Didn't play a ton this year. Saw good things out of both Stremlo and Mulaney. Guyton's been the one that's played the most, but with all these players, there's going to be other opportunities out there, and you have to recruit all of your players. That is the reality of college athletics. But it's going to be about the seniors out there. I know they'll get a great ovation. We know also that this is going to be it, right? They're going to qualify for the NCAA tournament. Unless they get in a deep run in the Big Ten tournament, probably have to win it all to get all the way up to a top 4 seed. But I don't know if you saw it earlier today, Charlie Crean from ESPN, their women's bracketologist, he updated his bracket, and as we thought, Iowa has moved up now to a 6 seed. Now, sometimes I feel like I'm on crazy pills. Felt like I was alone on an island here a couple of games back after they started ripping off those victories and moving up, and knowing what was in front of them. I said, now this team can attain a whole lot more than people are talking about a bubble and being stuck in an 8-9 game. I think there's more there. Work to be had. Finish off Wisconsin, get it done in the Big Ten tournament. Speaking of that, one final thing here, Locked On Hawkeyes, and that is what the Big Ten tournament's going to look like. So after the games this weekend, we will know the bracket will be released. So I went over once again to one of my favorite websites. Play along with me, bball.notnothing.net, and I projected who I believe is going to win this weekend. UCLA, USC. Got UCLA. Michigan State hosting the Gophers. Give me Sparty. I took Michigan on the road at Illinois. Iowa over Wisconsin. Maryland over Ohio State. Nebraska beating Northwestern. Indiana beating Purdue. Penn State beating Rutgers. And Washington beating Oregon. So I did all that, and it spits out the bracket. So Iowa in this scenario is tied for 8th place in the Big Ten. Tied with Oregon, Indiana, and Nebraska. But because Iowa is 1-3 combined against those 3 opponents, Iowa falls to 11th seed. Not great. However, look at this path. You open up with a rematch against Wisconsin. Then you get Michigan State. After that, Ohio State. Before you're in the semifinals, if it plays out in that fashion. It's a lot. Obviously, things will change because it's not going to go exactly the way you anticipate over the weekend. It never does. But that path, it's another good one. And this Iowa team been really good. Even before Caitlin Clark, this team's been really good in the Big Ten tournament. Thanks for being with us today and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We also got you covered with Locked On Big Ten. Craig Sheeman doing great work, putting the Big Ten first and talking Big Ten storylines each and every day. Plus your favorite team, MLB, spring training is here. NFL, getting ramped up for draft coverage. NBA, NHL, right in the middle of the season, all covered right here on the Locked On Network, your team every day. We got you covered on the Hawkeye front each and every day. We'll be back with you tonight after Iowa Northwestern goes final with an instant reaction podcast. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Go Hawks.